So Caroline, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But
thanks, Dr. Nick.
You're most welcome, and it's great to have you on the show. And before we walk into the future, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? What was your dream career when you grew up?
So, Dr. Nick, when I was growing up, my dream careers changed depending on the different stages of my life. So when I was in high school, I realized that I wanted a career that not only utilized my strengths, but also had the potential to be lucrative. So initially, I aspired to be an actuary. But when I learned that it would require about 9 years of schooling, I shifted my focus to becoming a chartered accountant, because that was a pathway that would enable me to start generating an income sooner so that I could also help my parents and my siblings. As I began my journey in financial services, I found myself increasingly drawn to leadership roles where I could inspire and empower others. So the idea of making a positive impact on other people's lives, whether through education, financial guidance, or leadership, fascinated me. So after about a decade in various leadership positions, I made the transition into learning and development. And, this role enables me to do more engaging and empowering work, which I continue to pursue today. However, my journey is part of a larger vision where I aim to empower women to thrive and succeed as strong leaders on the one hand, but also as wealth builders on the other hand. And I believe in the importance of creating pathways for women to gain the skills and support they need to make progress in their lives and in their careers.
And can you tell us who inspired you in your early days?
So my role models have significantly shaped my journey, with my late mother, Mary Ray, and my sister, Esinyemba, who now lives in Australia, being my most profound inspirations. They exemplified resourcefulness, very resilient women, strength, qualities which I strive to embody in my own life. And throughout my career, I consistently drew inspiration from those around me. So be it my teachers, my managers, my mentors, my leaders. And my approach has always been to identify the strengths of these individuals and incorporate those qualities into my own development. So particularly in my early career as a trainee accountant, it was greatly influenced by my training officer, Ben Samuel. I think he's since moved on from Standard Bank now. And I also had a mentor, Vanessa Olva. Their guidance and support were quite pivotal in shaping my professional outlook. I continue to enjoy inspiration, Dr. Nick, from my siblings, from my friends, from my acquaintances. And I recognize that various leaders and mentors have played a crucial role in my life, or crucial roles in my life, pushing me to strive for excellence and to pursue my ambitions. I've learned that the impact that others have on us often arises from a genuine place of support. So even sometimes, you may come across people that you experience as a sandpaper, so the really difficult engagements you have with others, or some people that are quite embracing, like a soft cushion or a soft blanket. And I find that both of them actually help to refine and enhance our skills and leadership qualities. And since marrying my husband, he has also become a significant source of inspiration and support. He complements my thought processes, he encourages me to think deeper and strive further. So I truly believe that every person we encounter serves as a human library. I think I've shared this concept with you in the past. They offer lessons that contribute to our growth, and I remain open to learning from each interaction, appreciating the diverse perspectives that shaped my journey.
Now, Caroline, you're leading a very impressive career in financial services. You are the group head of learning at one of the largest insurers in Africa, Old Mutual. Previously, you've been heading learning at EBSA, the large banking brand. Looking back over your career, would you say there was a turning point?
Old Mutual. So one of the questions I normally get from people is, what is the CA doing in learning and development? And there's a story behind that. And, you know, the turning point in my career came during a very challenging experience with leadership at a company that I worked for that profoundly shaped my perspective. So I was passed over for a promotion that I, alongside with other colleagues, believed that I had earned through hard work and dedication. And while the reasons for that decision were evident, I felt a lack of courage from my leaders to sit down with me and discuss the implications and how the organization would support my own growth, regardless of the fact that they had to make this decision. And so this moment led to my first taste of a corporate heartbreak, as I call them. During this difficult time, Dr. Nick, I had the opportunity to engage in personal visioning coaching with Mark Campbell. It was a 2-day experience, which was quite transformative. Mark guided me through a deep analysis of my life patterns and helped me to identify a golden thread that pointed towards my true purpose. We discovered that I was a teacher at heart, and with my journey and accumulated skills that I could focus on teaching in areas like finance and leadership. And after facing my corporate heartbreak, I became determined to help leaders to understand how to lead effectively. I wanted to ensure that dedicated and hardworking individuals like myself would never again face disappointment due to poor leadership. And since then, I've embarked on a journey of self-discovery, experimenting with a variety, number of ideas, honing my skills, building my personal brand, and I've embraced opportunities to share my insights on leadership and personal finance. And I've done this through my books. I've also written courses, and I do presentations and dialogues across various media platforms like the one we're having today. I am committed to influencing the next generation of leaders and fostering a work environment where everyone feels valued and supported.
Now, Caroline, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
So, Dr. Nick, I think with this question, right, to define the future of leadership, I think we first have to establish, at a fundamental level, what leadership is. And I know that there are numerous definitions of leadership. So for me, it boils down to the three things. And you will see in my definition how it actually becomes a self-emerging concept. So the future of leadership, are we talking about the future today or the future tomorrow or the future in 20 years' time? And I think with this definition and framework I've created, it actually helps us to see that leadership is an emerging concept. So the first thing for me is viewing leadership as a process. It's a process of transformation, right? Where there's a current state and a more desired future state. And leadership for me is the gap in the middle. So that force that helps us to transform our current state to a more desired future state. The second thing for me is that leadership is a value creation process. And it's a value creation process for all the players involved. And why this is important is that often organizations or leaders forget who they create value for, right? And sometimes, yes, there might be a focus on the customer, but it's actually about understanding all the different role players and making sure that as part of this leadership transformation process, everyone is receiving a value add or they are benefiting from that whole system. So the second thing for me is that it's a value creation process for all the players involved. The last thing is that leadership is also a process of continuous improvement. And this is where really the future focus comes from. So if we say it's a process of continuous improvement, what anchors or levers can we use to help us constantly improve? And I think there are 5. I mean, there could be more, but I think there are 5 most important ones. I think leaders have to constantly think about, and I mean, I use this idea of mastery, from Master Your Finances. It's just a theme I use in my material. So I talk about, mastering 5 levers. And the first lever to master is you have to master the mission. It's very important for leaders to know what game they are in. So what business are you in? And what is the value you are adding? What is your mission? That's the first thing to master. And it's a constant conversation because as time progresses, you have to constantly revisit so that you understand that, you're staying true to your mission and you are still, moving in the right direction. The second thing to master is to master who buys. So that's the customer, right? Master who your customer is, because that helps you clarify your mission, because your mission exists to solution for who buys from you. The third thing is you want to master yourself, because leadership actually starts with self. How self-aware are you? How are you able to self-regulate? I mean, the world has become so complex and quite challenging. So how do you become and build your own resilience as a leader? So everything around, mastering yourself. And again, with this concept for me, if leadership is a process, that means all of us are in the business of leadership, if you want to think about it. Because whether you are a call center agent, whether you are in the front office working with clients, you are helping clients move from one stage to a more desired future state. And so leadership becomes accessible to everyone. And it's available at all the levels in the organization. And everyone also has to invest in developing and mastering their own leadership styles. The fourth thing is master your influence. I mean, we know that, when you operate as one individual, there's so much you can achieve, right? We need others. So be it people in your team, be it other people that are not in your team, but that you need as part of the value chain to create the value for your customers, or be it even suppliers that you have to collaborate with. You have to master your influence. And here, what's important is to understand the power and control dynamic. Some people, by virtue of the roles that they occupy, they have a disproportionate amount of power and control. And for those leaders, it's even more important for them to welcome other people and create the space so that they're able to influence and work together to create exponential results. The fifth thing, Dr. Nick, for me is you've got to master change as a leader. And this talks to the context, right? If, business was static, customer needs were static, it would be so easy to say, okay, now I've mastered it. But because things are in a constant state of flux, if you look at it historically from how, leadership has evolved, you also look at the context in the general market, we all need to understand what's actually happening, how are things changing, so that we can become relevant and we apply approaches that make sense for the situation that we're at. So the future of leadership for me means, you are really focused on galvanizing visionaries who are rooted in purpose to add value, embracing this whole idea of a holistic approach that integrates also even things like technology, because from a change perspective, there are things happening in, technology, AI, etc. Ethics have become a big thing in the world of leadership. And also you have to embrace a global mindset, because whether we like it or not, the world is becoming smaller and smaller. So it involves developing leaders who are adaptable. You have to be empathetic. You have to be capable of navigating complexities of a rapidly changing world. I could go on, but I think in a nutshell, that's how I view the future of leadership.
Thank you. And Caroline, what would you say is that we have to do more to develop and build future leaders?
So I think some of the most important lessons I've learned really is the value of continuous learning and personal development. Future leaders must be committed to lifelong learning. They need to be self-aware. I think I mentioned this already. You need the ability to inspire and uplift others, and constant conversations with ourselves, with self-reflection around those 5 levers that I mentioned.
And Caroline, these are challenging times as the world is stumbling from one crisis into the next. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges future leaders should expect to encounter and hopefully overcome in their career?
Yes, I think I've already mentioned some of them. I think when I started in learning and development, people were talking about a VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, right? And I think in the past 5 to 7 years, the tsunami of everything that could go wrong to make VUCA come to life has actually happened. So you mentioned pandemics, and you saw like with the previous pandemic we experienced, it was a global challenge, right? So I think future leaders have to be open to disruptions that will come as a result of things like pandemics. I think technology is another big mega trend that they need to watch out for. And I think the best example of understanding or the need of embracing technology, I think it was one of the books I read, I've forgotten which one. And this gentleman was giving a scenario about, you know, how in the olden days they used to chop trees with the axes. And he said that, you know, ignoring technological disruptions is like, you know, having a team of these, you know, big bodybuilders, and they're really strong, they're well fed, they're healthy, and giving them axes that are well sharpened. No matter how great that team can be, a team of teenagers with a chainsaw will come and chop off a tree much faster than them. So I think when we ignore technological disruptions, we actually render ourselves archaic and useless in a way. There's also this issue of ethical dilemmas and the need to balance global perspectives with local realities.
So, Caroline, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are maybe one or two key skills that you would want to factor in and teach?
Yeah, so Dr. Nick, I don't think it would be one or two, given the complexities we're talking about. But I would definitely encourage future leaders to master skills that set them apart. I think first and foremost, self-awareness is essential, and all leaders need to commit to a process of continuous exploration that will help us grow. Additionally, it's important to embrace digital literacy. I think we already mentioned this idea of technology. You know, just embracing a curious mindset that says, you know, what could technology help me do better in my work? I think that's something all of us, whether you are in technology or not in the technology space, I think embracing, you know, digital literacy is quite important. Instead of being intimidated by technological advancements, just consider technology as a valuable ally in your toolkit, enabling you to work more efficiently and effectively. Emotional intelligence is another one that's crucial also, Dr. Nick. I think future leaders need to invest in skills that help them understand people better. Because as technology takes away some of the mundane tasks that we can never do better than machines, I think our strengths will become, you know, around enhancing our ability to influence and connect with others. And I also think that future leaders need to focus on strategic thinking, prioritizing areas like sustainability. I've already, you know, mentioned there's a whole movement around, you know, sustainability. It's important to be curious around what's that global conversation that's going on around sustainability and ethical decision making. And I think these skills, together with others, are quite vital for effective leadership in the future.
Thank you. Now, Caroline, as a mentor to many future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Oh, Dr. Nick, where can I even begin? So I mentioned earlier on the personal visioning process that I went through. And I think out of that, I learned that, you know, our influence and mentorship actually happens at two levels. So you have those formal settings where you're formally appointed as part of a program or through a mutual arrangement with a mentee, you know, to say we are going to, you know, engage in a mentoring conversation. I think the second one, which for me is equally more powerful, and I think becomes quite important in our role as leaders in terms of role modeling the right behaviors, is as we go about leading, living, playing, there are secret admirers that are watching and modeling their ideologies and approaches based on our conversations, interactions with them, we are role modeling and mentoring others without even realizing it. So what has been fascinating for me are those incidental moments of mentorship where years later someone comes and says, thank you because of what you said that day. I went on to do X and this is now where I am. Thank you for inspiring me and showing me that such and such was possible, because you won't believe the number of people that just feel limited without even exploring things. And just by having a simple conversation, you can actually unlock something for someone. I remember one young lady that called me, and to this day, I have no recollection of the conversation that I had with her. And she was thanking me for inspiring her to go back to university. And she was actually calling me from this university. And she was saying, thank you so much, Caroline. You inspired me, you encouraged me. Now I'm enrolled and I'm doing such and such a qualification. So, I mean, that's still a mystery for me because I cannot remember having that conversation. I remember also an ex-colleague that sent me her transcript with a chain of distinctions. And she was also saying she had been inspired by a conversation that we'd had. And so she had enrolled in her MBA and she was doing so well in her studies. So many people that I've led as part of my corporate career also have grown into more senior roles, and some have started their own businesses. Some have, because remember I told you I also do the financial coaching as well. So, some will come back and say, thank you so much. I've paid off my home. Thank you so much. I've started, building my investment portfolio. Others have eradicated debt. I really love mentoring young leaders because there's that greatest potential of change when we take our years of experience, our successes, our failures, and we help someone who's upcoming because they just have more resources than what we ever had. So I believe that the ability, or our ability as leaders, to create even greater impact lies in engaging in tools like mentorship.
And Caroline, are there any role models of leadership who you have encountered and maybe worked with that you would recommend future leaders should learn from?
So I'm going to say something a little bit, contrary, Dr. Nick, because I find that the idea of looking for grand personalities actually takes us back to the great men theories in the evolution of leadership. And instead, I encourage people to embrace a mindset that every human interaction is a library, like I mentioned before. I think the problem I have with idolizing people is that invariably every person has their weaknesses. And we risk falling into the trap of either idolizing, or then when we see, or when their weaknesses are revealed, we start criticizing and demonizing people that we hold as role models. So I think my encouragement would be to observe people close to you, learn how to lead, and also how not to lead based on how you experience people. I also encourage, young leaders to read books, because automatically that exposes you to some great ideas of the world's greatest leadership thinkers. It's like having a mentor in your pocket. So I'm more married to ideas than people, for the same reasons, Dr. Nick. I mean, some people are great for a while and then you just see them going, in the wrong direction. So I think the ability to be quite discerning, to observe people and learn from their good qualities that you can integrate into your own journey is more valuable for me. Anchored in, the purpose that you're driving for, where you're going, because just generically taking any leader and making them your role model, I don't know whether that would be quite impactful, because I believe each individual is walking a uniquely individual path. So it's important to be able to look for ideas and qualities that can help you on that pathway.
Thank you. Now, Caroline, where can our leaders, our listeners follow you, and how should they connect with you?
Oh, thanks so much, Dr. Nick. So people can follow my thought leadership. I've also written books. So I've written 2 books, one called Master Your Finances, The Art of Building Wealth. And my second book is called The Oil, the Gift, and the Talent, Mastering Wealth and Happiness. They can also connect with me on LinkedIn and follow my blogs on, finances and leadership. Looking forward to connecting.
Thank you. And last but not least, Caroline, what is your message to the millions of learners who have just finished school who are starting a career, what are maybe one or two success principles that they should keep in mind?
So, Dr. Nick, for young people, middle career, even late career people, there are two frameworks that I came across in my research. The first one is by Father Robert J. Spitzer, and it's called The Four Levels of Happiness. The second one is also called The Four Commitments, and that one is by David Brooks. I think it's so important to be anchored in, firstly, what happiness means, and what purpose and meaning means. And I find that those two frameworks help quite beautifully. So I'll just go through them, quite quickly. So the four levels of happiness say that, happiness is this complex idea, but there are four levels of happiness. Your level one is happiness in a thing. And while things can give us happiness, that happiness will be short-lived. So it's kind of temporary happiness. So your shopping sprees, you're getting your dream homes, your dream cars, that is short-lived. Second level of happiness is happiness in experiences and achievements. That gives you a higher level of experience and happiness. And if you actually look at the research with some of the emerging younger generations like Gen Zs, etc., they value experiences more than things. And I think they've caught on to something that, our generation maybe missed. The third level of happiness is really around others, right? It's the good I see in others and the good that I do for others. And the final level of happiness talks about transcendence. And that's this idea of, pure beauty, pure joy, holiness, the idea of God himself. So that is one of the frameworks. The other framework, which is quite complementary to, the four levels of happiness, is it talks about the four commitments. If you want to live a life of meaning and purpose, you have to make the four commitments. And the commitment is a continuous commitment. So they talk about, commitment to your spouse and family. I know that for some young people, they are saying, look, I want to build my career, which I agree with. So build your career, but at some stage, understand that, one of the most important decisions that will impact every area of your life is around who you marry. So commitment to your spouse and family is important. Commitment to a vocation. I think, there's a myriad of opportunities that will be thrown at you, especially if you are well-skilled and, you put yourself out there. You'll find a lot of opportunities, but find what you want to get known for. That is your vocation. Commitment to a community. And with community, Dr. Nick, it's just about, don't loosely commit to communities. So don't join a group of, if people say, okay, please come and join our group, you just go and join. If you are part of that community, make sure that you're making the commitment, you're contributing more than you're taking out of the community. So be it your family, your church, or, like neighborhood, whatever it is, if you sign up as part of a community, make sure you're giving more than you're taking out. And then the last thing is commitment to your faith. So I really think that by focusing on these principles, leaders can really lead with integrity, they can inspire others, but most importantly, they can build lasting wealth and have impact while being happy. So what else can you ask for?
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline, for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and helping so many future leaders to master their career.
Thanks so much for having me, Dr. Nick. I had fun while talking to you.
Thank you.